Hello and welcome. In this tutorial we're going to use sprite sheets to create some animations for our player and use code to change animations on the fly. Let's get into it. Sprite sheets are basically large images which hold every animation frame for a sprite. In this tutorial we're going to make 5 animations for our player. Here they are. We're going to have an idle animation, an idle to run transition, a running animation, run to idle, and a jump animation. And as you can see, all of these images are in the images folder in the GitHub repo linked video description as normal. So let's go in and open our project. Here we are back in the project, and we're going to need to first up create some sprites. So inside the sprites folder, we'll go ahead and make a new group. And inside that group, we'll make the sprites. What we need to do is we need to take that animation sheet and convert it into an actual animation. First up, we'll go ahead and import. And we'll grab, what is this? I think this is idle. We'll grab the idle sprite sheet. And as you can see here, everything's been loaded in as one single image. The way we can split this up is we can go edit image. And then up here in the ribbon, we have this image menu. And then we can go down to convert to frames. And this will basically open up a grid editor. So we need to know how many frames first up. We can count along and see, well, there's 8 frames. How many frames per row? Well, it's all in one row, so there's 8 frames per row. Then we need to set the frame size. So what we can do is we can go back and we can look at that idle sprite sheet and then just go properties. And then in the properties, we can see under details, the resolution is 640 by 80, which is telling me that every frame is 80 pixels by 80 pixels, and that's how things are laid out. So, okay, that's great. We can close that down and then set that info. So frame width we'll set to 80, and you can see that's covering everything nicely, and then frame height as well. Great. So then everything is done. So we can hit convert, and then up the top, we can see each of the individual frames has come in. We can close down the image editor and we can hit play, and we can see that our character is idling. Although, unless they've just been doing some heavy exercise, they probably wouldn't be panting this much. So we can go back, and then there's a few places. Up the top, we can change the frame rate. On the inspector panel, we can change the frame rate as well. These two are tied together. They both update together. So I think, and this is one of those things, it'll be slightly different for every animation actually, but for this one, I think 5 frames per second looks pretty normal. I actually don't like idle animations. I don't think it looks natural to be like constantly in movement, but here we go. That stuff is there. Now we'll go ahead and we'll do the same thing for each of the other sprites. So at this point we've made all those animations. I'll go to the player object and I'll just change their sprite to the idle. Okay, good. And then if we open up that game, we can see that the player is not going to be very visible right now. So I'll just flick over to the background layer and I'll change the color. I'll just make it white. That's fine for now. So let's go ahead and give this a go. Okay, so here we are in the game. Here's our player. We can move around, we can jump, And as you can see, there's the obvious issue of animation, but also the collisions aren't working all that well. Right? We've got all this empty space, which should not be colliding with anything. But let's work on the animation first. So to start with, let's deal with jumping, whether we're on the ground or off the ground. If we're on the ground, we'll be, I guess, in an idle animation. If we're off the ground, then we'll be in a jumping animation. We can go ahead and code this up if we just close everything down, go to the player, go to their step code, and this bit here is where we sort of get off the ground. So what we can do is there's a variable named Sprite index, and that tracks which animation to currently show. So let's set that to player jump, and that will, give us a jump animation. And then if we go back to this part where we've done our Y collision, and then we've collided with the ground, then this indicates that we've just touched the ground, and at this point we should go back to an idle animation. Now there is a little bit more to this. We can tweak this a lot. So let's say that we're jumping, but we're moving forward as we jump, and then we hit the ground. We probably don't want to go idle. We probably want to go straight into a running animation. And this is, you can tweak this to your heart's content, but it's just something that we need to get something there. So, all right, here we're idling, we're jumping, and then back to idle. It's very sort of hard to see on low resolutions. But yeah, idle, jump, idle. Okay, cool. So in addition to like running animations and things, we need to control which way the player is appearing to face. Up above, we have some code to check whether we're clicking left or right. And we can actually, in addition to setting some stuff, we can flip the image. And the way we do this is we have the image X scale variable. We can set it large, small, and we can reverse it. So if I set it to -1, that will flip the image around. If I set it to 1, that will, these are the reverse of each other. Cool, so I could run this. Currently we're facing right. If we hit left, now we're facing left, right, left, right. But see that weird sort of flip around? What's happening is that the flip is occurring around the center of the sprite. When we made the sprite, the default position for the center is the top left. So if we go like that, you can see that it's sort of mirroring around that pivot point, and we can change that. So we can go, we're going to have to do these for all of them, but it's pretty quick. We can go back to the sprites, and up at the, here's our preview, by the way, and where this little point is, that is the pivot point of the sprite, the center of the sprite. So we can go up to the top right, and here we have some options for where we want to put that pivot point. I'm going to set it at the bottom center. That's probably fair, and I'll go ahead and do the rest of these in a second, but at least for the idle animation, we should be able to see that it's looking more reasonable. Cool, okay, I'll just go ahead and fix up the rest of those. Okay, so we've gone ahead and fixed those up. Now, let's have a look at the idle to run and run to idle transitions. The idle to run transition occurs when the character is currently idling and either the left or right key has just been pressed. We've done these keyboard checks, we've set some status. I'm going to sort of do some more keyboard checks. So I'm going to make a variable called trying to run, and this will basically be whether either the left or right key is currently pressed. Okay, so we've got that keyboard check variable set up. We can now respond to that. So we can say if we are currently idle, and we're trying to run, then go ahead and set the animation. Remembering to name our sprites correctly. So on the other hand, I'm going to make another variable named not running, and that will basically be set off if currently neither of the left or right keys are pressed. Okay, there we go. So this is not quite going to look right, but give it a go and check that those transitions are working. So currently, if you see this, I hit right, and yep. Oh, something's a little off. Oh, now I just remembered. Okay, I'm making this up on the spot, but I think the issue is that every time we hit the ground, we will reset the animation to the idle animation. I'm not sure why the movement isn't working, but what I can do is I can say if our sprite index is jumping, and then we hit the ground, then now we're going to idle. Let me see if this helps a little bit. Oh yeah, yep. Yeah, that works, sort of. Yeah, we do still have some collision issues. I'll fix that up later. But okay, so right now we can start moving, but we have nothing to make that animation end. But actually, this animation is looping. It's continually ending. And every time the animation ends, an animation event is fired off, which we can hook into. So we can go back to our events, I said. We can add an event. I think this is other. Yep, other animation end. And then we can handle these cases. So if we're idle to run, then we want to run. And then if we were run to idle, then we want to idle. Okay, let's give that a go. Alrighty, so as you can see, when we hit a key, they get into that run position, and then they just start running. Yeah, see that? We hit the ground, but we don't sort of detect. Okay, so let's take some time to work on that. So we'll go to the step, and now we need to choose an animation. So we'll say there we have it. Cool. That should be fine. You can spend a lot of time on this stuff, and it is important. So, oh my goodness, what's wrong? Ah, of course. I'm really talking to myself today, but this check pressed is a one-off event, and it will not be set. It'll be set if we instantaneously hit the key, but not if we've been holding it because we're floating through the air. So we can do this instead. I'm actually pretty happy with that. That turned out well. Is there anything I can change here? Well, we can now see that trying to run is the logical opposite of not running. So I can sort of reduce that a little bit. Yeah, perfect. Okay, I'm happy with that. So the last thing to do, I guess, is to change the hitboxes. So we can open up one of these sprites, and one of the big concepts of computing is that an object's appearance is not the same, does not have to be the same as its behavior. So we can actually use lots of different bits of info to describe something. Here's a sprite, and this is the stuff that we see, but then on the side here we have something called a collision mask, and this is the sort of shape which is used to detect collisions. Currently it's set to automatic, and I believe that will try to grab as much of the image as possible. We have some other options here. We can use full image. No, let's not do that. So let's go back to automatic. So we'll attempt to shrink the box, and then we'll switch that to manual. And what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to be very careful about this, is I want to sort of shrink it down to the body. And I'm not going to change the height at the bottom too much, because I want to try to keep consistent height. I found in some cases that the player would walk and get stuck in the ground and it wasn't so good. But something like this should be fine, and we can go ahead and do the same thing for all of the other animations. We'll just go collision mask, manual, and we will not touch the bottom. We'll just try to shrink it on the sides and the top. And it's okay to shrink it quite a bit, because when we get into gameplay, some games play better with small hitboxes. That's a matter of taste. That will probably be fine for our purposes, you know, just for experimentation. So here we are. We can sort of now, in the provided code, I do handle variable frame rate, but I forgot to talk about it in the last video. So you'll see that the frame rate, the frame rate really seems to be all over the place, and it's affecting the movement. And this is because we're moving by a fixed amount per frame. But what we can do is we can go into the movement code, and there's a variable named delta time. And delta time is how many, I think it was microseconds? I forget. It's how much time has passed since the last frame. So I'm going to multiply everything by delta time. But then I need to attenuate delta time because we're measuring in, I think it's microseconds or milliseconds. But long story short is I need to reduce it, otherwise we're going to move too far. So that's all good. And then I'll just take that line, and then basically anywhere where I'm changing position, like down here, I'm going to put those multipliers in there, and that will just make sure that we're moving by an amount which depends on the frame rate. So it should become frame rate independent. Fingers crossed. Yeah. As you can see, it may need a little bit of tweaking. It may need a lot of tweaking. But that weird stuttering effect is gone. Anyway, so I'll probably leave that there for now. Look, I hope you had fun. It's a lot of fun doing this Gamemaker stuff. And in the next video, I'm going to set up a parallax camera so we can actually have some 3D effects going on in our game. All right, that'll be it for today. All the best. I'll see you again soon. Bye. Hi, so I just wanted to take a second to say thank you to all of my channel supporters. If you would like to support the channel, it's $2.50 a month. That's all I ask, but it's not expected. If you are not able or willing to support the channel financially, the best thing you can do is the usual: like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you'd like to see. Let me know what you're enjoying, because I am trying to make the best educational content that I can under the constraints. So, with that out of the way, really big thank you to Antonin Karet, Dankil Foles, Declan, Endelon Studios, Isaiah Meyer, Mathieu Derick, Moim, and Shreya. Thank you so much, my dudes. I really do appreciate it. It's fuel for the fire. Keep me going, keep me motivated. But yeah, have a great one, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.